and welcome to the BullCast podcast. I'm Katie Pickler, and with me today is Cameron Spann.
Good morning.
And Court Winsett.
I mean, I guess we should always say good afternoon because this thing dropped in the noon time.
Good afternoon, BullCast listeners.
She just surprised me. She always calls on you first, and she got me this time.
I got you. So maybe when I'm not here and y'all have to do an episode without me, y'all need to channel Robin Williams. Good afternoon, BullCast listeners.
On it.
We're going to talk about the power of compound interest.
Indeed.
Yeah. This is going to be exciting.
Yes, ma'am.
Give us that fun fact, Court.
The fun fact would be that Albert Einstein called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world because of its powerful impact on wealth building. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it.
Albert Einstein quote, but that last part, I could see Yoda saying.
I was waiting for somebody to do a Yoda impression.
It is. Okay, so before we get into the episode about really what is compound interest, why you should understand it, so then you can earn it, so you don't have to pay it, according to Albert Einstein. We got a list on these new 7 wonders of the world. So obviously, since he said this is the 8th wonder of the world, let's get a refresher on the 7 wonders of the world. So number 1, Great Wall of China, Northern China, holding the title of the longest human-made structure in the world. The Great Wall is actually many walls running through northern China and southern Mongolia, while some sections were built of stone. Others use existing ditches, moats, irrigation system. Some parts of the walls aren't a wall at all, but rather natural barriers like mountain ridges.
The other day, I read the most interesting fact. It was like, do you know how truly long this wall is? And I was talking to Abby. It is so long in miles, you could drive from L.A. to New York, back to L.A., back to New York, and almost all the way back to L.A. That is how long the Great Wall of China is. Is that not insane?
I had no idea it was that
It
long.
also took them thousands of years to build, but still, that is
That's
insane.
massive.
That is crazy. Wow.
Wow.
There go our hopes for our own Great Wall here. I mean, thousands of years. Good Lord. Okay, next on the list is Machu Picchu. This is in Peru. It's sometimes called the Lost City of the Incas. It is thought to have been a royal retreat for the Incans in the 15th century before it was mysteriously abandoned.
Haunted.
Or did maybe aliens come and take all the Incans away? I think we all know the answer to that question. Because it's nestled in the Andes Mountains between 2 peaks, Machu Picchu went largely unnoticed by European and American explorers for about 400 years.
Interesting.
Pretty cool. I've never been to Machu Picchu, but I have wanted to visit it. It
looks beautiful. It's wild that a city can just get lost.
Yeah. Nowadays, it's probably a lot harder for a city to get lost than it was back when Europeans and Americans were first, or Americans, back when Europeans were first coming over to the Americas, because they could only really survey land on foot, right? They could only look at it and look out and see what they saw. And, you couldn't really just go up into the air and fly and see. Now we have not only airplanes and helicopters and so forth, but we also have satellites that can do satellite imaging and so forth. So it's a lot harder for somebody to sneak a whole city under the radar, so to speak.
Yeah, but it could have been hidden cities, and it's like, it's actually just, a 5-minute walk that way.
Yep.
The third wonder of the world is Chichen Itza in Yucatan, Mexico. Located in the jungles of Mexico, toward the tip of the Yucatan Peninsula, is the abandoned ancient city of Chichen Itza. More than 2 million people visit the archaeological site annually to get a glimpse into the art, architecture, and science of the Mayan culture. And I believe I'm correct here. I think it is one of those massive Mexican pyramids almost. It's humongous.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the next one, the Roman Colosseum, Rome, Italy. One of Italy's most well-known relics, the Colosseum was once the height of entertainment for its famed gladiator contest. It seated 50,000 spectators, more than twice the capacity of New York's Madison Square Garden. I mean, just think about, that was huge.
Yeah.
Huge. It still is huge today.
Have y'all seen Gladiator 2?
I enjoyed it.
I did too.
I started to watch it one night, but I didn't complete
Yeah.
it. Oh, I guess I'm next. So Taj Mahal. It's in Agra, India. It was built nearly 400 years ago as a statement of love. The Taj Mahal is thought to be the height of Indian Mughal architecture. It's easily India's most recognizable building, palace, or otherwise. Another place that I would very much like to go and see.
Next on the list would be Petra. in southwest Jordan, also known as the Rose City for the red rock it's built from. This ancient Jordanian city was once part of a major trade route. Going by its Greek name meaning rock, Petra is considered one of the most beautiful places in the world and was even referenced in the Bible by the name Selah. So this is that big, like carved-in structure on a wall face in the middle of the desert.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was in Indiana Jones, I believe.
That's right. Yeah.
It's beautiful. Why are my hands up? Can you believe?
The last one, Christ the Redeemer, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Standing 2,300 feet above the city at the peak of Mount
Corcovado?
Corcovado? Sorry if that's mispronounced. It is hard to miss Christ the Redeemer statue. Its size also makes it quite eye-catching. It's 98 feet tall from head to toe. Add another 26 feet for the pedestal and 92 feet wide from fingertip to fingertip of the sculpture's outstretched hands. Maybe that's what you were preparing for was this one. I mean, just amazing. But it's like I've seen pictures of this, of how large it is. And it's just, it's crazy to think about that huge structure being built. Okay, so that was our list of the 7 wonders of the world. Now we're going to talk about Albert Einstein's 8th wonder of the world.
Compound interest. So what is compound interest?
Tell us about it, Court.
Oh, I get to tell you about it. Okay. Compound interest is interest earned on money that previously earned interest. So basically where if you had $10,000, let's say, just to keep the number easy, and you earned 10% on that in 10 years, then 10% of $10,000 is $1,000. You would have $11,000 at the end of 10 years. But if you earn 10% interest over 10 years and it's compounded, say annually, that means you earn 10% interest the first year. At the end of the first year, you would have $11,000, and then you're going to earn 10% interest on $11,000 for the next year, and so on and so forth. So it compounds every single year. You're earning more and more, and your earnings basically become exponential as time goes on. Most people also, I very much simplified the example, but most people or most institutions compound more frequently than annually. They may compound on a monthly basis, or they may compound on a quarterly basis. Yeah. And so you get the benefit, you get the benefit of a more regular addition to the amount of money that you're earning interest on, basically.
And not only are you earning interest on your beginning deposit, but you're also earning interest on the interest. And so obviously it's that snowball effect. Like we talk about snowball effect a lot of times with debt in a negative way, but it's also, you think about when you start building a snowman, like you start with little and then it's just you keep building and adding and adding and adding. So this is the benefit of compound interest. Yeah. Think about compound interest. Well, I didn't even actually read that it said snowball effect. I just started explaining that. And then I see this next note is, it's like the snowball effect. That is great. Y'all, I've lost my mind. But the more snow, the bigger it gets. As it grows, it gets bigger, and it becomes bigger at a faster rate. Think about that as well. When you start out, you're like, I'm never going to get this large ball. Snowman, y'all. I'm making a snowman here. It gets real little, and then it's just the more you go, it's like, oh, wow, holy moly, it's now like massive. Yep. So what makes compound interest so powerful?
Okay, well, like I said, first of all, frequency. If you're compounding annually over the course of 10 years versus just getting 10% payment at the end of 10 years, then every year you're adding more to the amount that you're earning interest on. But if you're compounding even more frequently than that, quarterly, you're going to see an increase in the amount that you earn interest on a quarterly basis or on a monthly basis. And that stuff adds up.
Dramatic results, this says.
Yeah, time also makes it more powerful. Compounding is more dramatic over long periods. So the key here is to start early because you have more time.
Absolutely. And we talk about that with people of what's your timetable for your investing. And so that's why it's better to, even if you start small, start early. And the time that you're invested in the market. Interest rates. So higher rates mean an account will grow more rapidly, but compound interest can overcome a lower rate. Don't be persuaded to not do something just because it's a lower rate. It can still have a huge impact, especially over a long period. An account compounding at a lower rate can end up with a higher balance in an account using a simple calculation.
Okay, so obviously the more you can deposit early on, the more it's going to grow, but that shouldn't deter you necessarily from investing money as early on as you can. But letting your money grow or regularly adding new deposits to your account will work best. So once you start, let's say you start with that $10,000, if you can add more money to that over time, then obviously don't just invest the 10 and let it sit. Continue to put more in, and you'll see payout for that additional investment that you make over time as well.
And it's a lot of times people will look at it as, is it better for me to do a one lump sum a year? Now, I'm not going into into cash flow things because that's a particular thing. If it's better for you cash flow wise to do monthly versus a lump sum, because if you get a bonus, but a lot of times it's much better for you to do that monthly contribution versus just doing the $1,200 a year.
Katie, you and I both have done a lot of calculations in terms of determining, okay, if you invest $10,000 now and wait a period of 5 years, what will you have at the end of 5 years at a particular interest rate? One of the things that we have to take into consideration when we are making these calculations is there are additions or withdrawals, and whether those additions or withdrawals come at the beginning of a period or at the end of a period, because just the space of a single month or a single year when you're taking it out at the beginning versus the end, that can make a pretty major difference in the amount that you earn in interest just from beginning or end. Timing does make a difference.
Yeah. And so it's one of those, like I just said, if you we're going to decide, hey, should I put $100 a month into this account or should I put $1,200 in December every year? It's the same amount of money. Number one, you figure out from a cash flow what works best for you, but it's obviously that's more money that's starting January, February, March, April that's growing.
It's earning interest
faster than you waiting until only doing a deposit in December every year.
Yeah.
And let's talk about the withdrawal aspect of it. Get your greedy paws off the money if you want it to grow.
Keep your filthy paws off my silky
draws.
Lordy Lou. That is from Greece, if you don't know that. But a lot of times with this, and people will say, well, what about compound interest? It's not growing. Well, because every time it gets a little bit above that principal, that original amount, you pull it out.
Yeah.
Like, of course, it's not going to grow more because you keep pulling money out. So don't dampen the effect of compound interest.
Right.
So starting amount, the amount of money you start with does not affect compounding. Whether you start with $100 or $1 million, compounding works the same way. Do you hear me? Even if you, especially, we just did this episode about generational wealth transfer. And so, yes, you may not have $1 million you can start with, but can you start with 50? Can you start with 100? Can you just start?
Right.
So it's going to still work the same.
Yeah. If you start with $1 million, clearly earning a percentage of interest on $1 million, you're earning more on that $1 million that you've invested, but that shouldn't be a reason that you don't start earlier with less money. Basically, starting small, you're still going to earn interest and it's still going to build up over time. So it's worth going ahead and investing.
I was just going to say, to recap for our listeners, because that was kind of a lot about what makes compound interest powerful. You've got frequency, time, interest rate, deposits, and starting amount.
Yeah.
Our phones somebody's phone vibrated. And so we all are looking at our phones to see like who.
It's me. I'm the lucky one.
Yeah. So this is not a secret. Start with something, figure out if you're going to be regularly adding to it or not. And even if it's high interest rate, low interest rate, whatever it is, the compound interest is going to work. You trust the process. It's going to work as long as you're not pulling money out and doing different things like that. Even if you just put $100 and left it alone, let it grow for 5-10 years, which is where a lot of people say, oh, it's not enough to invest. It's not enough to do anything. But it can be if it's in the right place. It can really grow. Now, obviously, sitting in a bank account.
That depends. Obviously, whether the bank is paying you an interest rate or not, and whether or not it's being compounded, depend on the kind of account and so forth. But clearly, if you have it in a checking account, then you're not earning interest. One of the things that we talk about with interest that, Katie, you've probably referenced in some of your meetings is the idea of the rule of 72. If you've ever met with your financial advisor and they've mentioned this and you wondered what they were talking about and they didn't explain it, hopefully they explained it. But if for some reason they didn't, here's what the rule of 72 is talking about. It's basically the idea of if you take a particular amount of money and if you know the interest rate or can estimate the interest rate that you'll be earning on that money if you invest it, then the rule of 72 says that approximately if you take the interest rate that you'll be earning and divide it into the number 72, that will tell you approximately how many years it will take for the money you're investing to double at that interest rate. If you have a set amount of time that you know you can invest and you want to know what interest you would need to earn in order to build your money to a certain point, you could say, okay, I can only invest this money for 6 years. What is the interest rate that I need to double my money if I can only invest it for 6 years? Yeah. And you divide 6 years into 72, and that will tell you the interest rate that you need to earn, which would be 6 into 72. That's a 12% interest rate. That's a pretty high interest rate to double your money.
So, I mean, that's a quick little cheat calculation you can use, the rule of 72. For example, I've had people who've been very goal driven and they said, I want to have $50,000 by the time I'm 30, or I want, to have X amount saved up for my kids' education by the time they hit 18. So we can do calculations like that behind the scenes of this is how much you would have to save or have to initially deposit, and this is the interest rate we would need to get as a return. So there is ways to calculate that to really then show how can we have compound interest work.
The idea of compound interest goes into a lot of the calculations that we make for planning.
Yeah.
For a lot of stuff. We can tell you how much you need to start with, how much you need to invest every period, how much interest rate, what's the interest rate you need to earn. We can, given if we have certain factors, we can tell you what the other factors are that you would need to reach a particular goal. That's really the sort of the foundation of what we do when we do financial plans.
When everybody's coming in, and I've talked about this before, the big buzzword is, I want passive income. I want somebody to walk in and be like, I want compound interest. Yeah, baby, we got this. Let's do this. And it's, drop to your friends. Oh, do you know about the rule 72? Yeah. I'm an investor. I know about rule 72. So you've got some little nuggets now you can use. So tips to maximize compound interest.
Round robin?
Yep. Start early.
Oh, yes. Consistency is key. So make regular contributions to your savings or your investment accounts.
Don't ignore the impact of fees or expenses.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Watch out for high interest debt compounding. And that's where we talked about the snowball effect in the bad way.
Yeah. Yeah. So remember, pay off those credit cards at the end of every single month because they compound that debt.
Which goes to, I don't know why I was about to call him Arnold, goes to Albert Einstein, a.k.a. Arnold. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it.
Yep.
So that's where you're paying that compounding interest on those crazy credit cards, those debt, and you don't even realize it.
Look for high yield accounts. So obviously maximize the interest you can earn. That's always going to be to your benefit.
Automate your savings and investments.
Yeah.
Don't think about it. Just let it keep doing its thing.
Make it an automatic bill, and that's make that be one of the last things you possibly cut when you're trying to trim your budget. That it should always be like, I'm still doing my 401k, I'm still doing my investment contributions, saving for your future self.
Yeah, you can go without food for a few months. If you,
I'm
just
not
so long as
saying
you
that.
get that savings. You know what I'm saying?
I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
Okay, this was kind of a short and sweet one. Really just kind of wanted you to know what compound interest was, what Rule 72 is, because they are buzzwords that are said a lot. It's simple when you really break it down and you understand that's what it is. It's everyone wants to have that stock tip of the day or wants to know the secret to investing, but it really just breaks down to get started, have a plan.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, there's the closing bell. You've made it to the end of yet another episode of the BullCast podcast. If you liked what you heard and you'd like to hear more, please feel free to go to your favorite subscription service to sign up to have our podcast beamed directly to your device every single Thursday at noon. If you'd like to find out more about Cortland, Katie, Cameron, or Nicole, please feel free to go to our website. That website is bullcastpodcast.com. We've got bios up there. We've got pictures. We've got even a place where you can drop a comment or suggest a topic you'd like to hear us talk more about. But hey, I mentioned pictures. If you like pictures, we do have an Instagram account. That handle is at BullCast Podcast. We also have a Words account. That is obviously X, and that X handle is at BullCast Podcast as well.
I thought you meant like a Microsoft Word account.
Do we have Microsoft Word now?
No, we have an account where we post the words. Also, we have a Facebook page. That Facebook page is BullCast the Podcast. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, as we do every week, let me mention to you that we work at a place called Pickler Wealth Advisors. And if you'd like to find out more about us, more about where we work, find out about what we do, find out about what we can do for you, find out about our amazing team, and yes, that's right, find out about our boss, David Pickler, please feel free to go to that website. That website is picklerwealthadvisors.com.
That's advisors with an O.
Not an E.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've given you everything you need to go forth and compound that interest. So for now, I'm Court.
I'm Katie.
I'm Cam.
And we're done.